Thank you all for coming this evening. So nice to see you all. And Anne, we could not have a better setting tonight. It's absolutely spectacular. The food has been spectacular. The company has been spectacular. It's just been a wonderful evening all around. Thank you all for your support, for everything you do, for being such wonderful friends. We love you all. Tonight we have another guest speaker, Laura Hoffman. And we're going to talk about our grantee, which is called Colors of Connection. The mission of Colors of Connection is to engage youth from conflict-affected countries and their communities through collaborative art making. This is a new one for us. Colors of Connection focuses on adolescent girls in East and Central Africa. It's a unique nonprofit that engages in psychosocial arts engagement, public mural making, community building, and violence prevention in conflict and post-conflict areas. Communities are encouraged to use art and art activities to create a platform to emphasize important values, make sense of traumatic experiences, generate problem-solving techniques and coping skills, and enhance self-confidence. So Together Women Rise is funding a grant of $47,250 to support their Girl Awakening project in the war-torn Democratic Republic of the Congo. Through art making, public mural making, and an emphasis on gender equality, this Girls Awakening program helps 10 to 12-year-old girls process war and gender trauma, primarily through art, and stay in school. And it also provides a mentorship program for older girls ages 18 through 24 who mentor the younger girls. So it's self-sustaining. The murals, and Laura will, I think, show you photos of this and talk more about this. The murals that they create promote an empowered role for women, depicting them in occupations that are believed to be for men, such as doctors and construction workers. I thought that was incredibly cool. So they walk through town and see these big murals of women being construction workers in this war-torn country. So our guest speaker tonight, Laura Hoffman, is a board member of Colors of Connection and is uniquely qualified to advise and guide this organization. Laura is an expressive arts therapist. She uses art to help people heal from trauma. She's an expressive arts therapist. She's a dancer. She's a teacher. She's a producer and an entrepreneur. She's the co-owner of multiple businesses related to expressive arts therapy. She was also a member of her town's Cultural Affairs Commission from 2014 to 2020. And she was a development officer for the University of Florida. So she kind of hits all pieces of this. She's also a documentary and commercial film and video producer. She has a bachelor's degree with a double major in cultural history and dance. And she was awarded a Fulbright scholarship in 1982. It's not everybody that can do that. So we've got another amazingly powerful and accomplished woman who we're helping to fund her organization. She's also certified in the Alexander technique, and she has a master's degree in applied psychology and dance movement therapy. Thank you, Laura, so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me. I so wish I could be there. It looks like it's a beautiful place. My daughter is going to school up at Berkeley.
Laura, hang on 1 second. We need to turn the sound up, apparently. I'm sorry.
Sure. No problem.
Is that muted?
No, it's not muted. You want me to mute it?
I can, yes, certainly. Ready, set, go? Is it a go? Thumbs up? Someone give me a thumbs up. Okay. Hi again, take two. I can see the very tops of people's heads. It looks like there's maybe 10 people there, perhaps. Now I really wish I was up there. Hi. I was hoping I was going to be up there. My daughter's going back to school for her sophomore year up at Berkeley, and I was going to go with her because why wouldn't I? But we're going back on the 20th instead, so that's why we're doing it this way. The woman who I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but your introduction was phenomenal. So I almost feel like I should just say thank you and goodbye. But I'll fill in some blanks and go into some details. I'm going to start a timer so I don't, because I can babble. If there's anything in particular that you want me to talk about, I guess we'll do that in the Q&A. I do not know if you've been shown the video or not. There's a short video. Has anyone seen that? Can you just?
We're going to do that afterwards, I think.
Laura,
Okay.
we have not seen the Laura, and we want you to talk as much as you want. We're here
Okay.
for you. That's the whole point of this whole.
Okay, fantastic. All right.
It-
Okay, great. Thank you. So the video, I won't show it to you since you're going to see it afterwards. I'll just let you know that the titles, the texts below, it goes more quickly than you're going to be able to read it. But I think having the visuals and whatever you can take on, we had an intern who made that. We're going to have to, so just keep that in mind. We're aware of the rapidity that, it goes too fast. So I was asked to say a little bit about how and why I became involved in Colors of Connection. And I'll say that some of it was just random good luck. I moved to Athens, Georgia in 2000. Well, when was it? Yeah, anyway, long time ago. And Jane McPherson, who's the director of global outreach for the social work department, and she has a million hats there. She was on the original board and she had to step down, and she and I were friends, and she asked me if I'd step in, and I was thrilled because it really is the convergence of a wide variety of aspects of the work that I've already done with, working with nonprofits, both in creating and running nonprofit organizations, fundraising, and I've had about 35 years working with children, adolescents, and adults in a range of psychosocial issues, but in particular with a focus on early abuse and trauma and gender-based violence. So it was kind of a miracle to have something so perfect that I felt I could contribute to, but also reciprocally fed my interests and my desire to participate in the world at large and feel like I was doing something meaningful with my time and experience. I gather from the other groups that I've met with and spoken with that the women who participate in RISE have a history as well in some capacity with participating. And so that brings me to the next part, which is, well, maybe you don't know, I'll just quickly say, Colors of Connection was founded by two women who both were working in various parts of Africa. They were friends from school, and they were working with refugees in particular at that time. But they were not doing anything therapeutic or arts related. And it was through their personal experience. And Christina, who's still working directly and is in Goma actually right now, is a painter. She's not an expressive arts therapist, but she is well, she's a empathic human being. She's a fabulous painter, and she has a background in working with these populations. So she combined her skills and started Colors of Connection. I don't know. Can I share my screen with you guys? I'm going to give it a shot. Maybe. Let's see what happens. So this is Africa. I just want to get you oriented. So often people say, this population exists all over the world. Why are we in Goma? This is the Democratic Republic. I'm zooming in. Goma is going to show up quickly here. This is Goma on the edge of what I'm sure you guys are aware of is a very complex socio-political, war-torn part of the world. Our mission, I was going to try to do this whole visual I'm gonna maybe not because it's confusing me, but so we're in Goma because Goma is in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's been over 30 years of war. It's one of the most populous and most impoverished countries of the 10 most populous and impoverished countries in the world. So we went in and we did these maps.
You're still sharing your screen.
Okay, I would love to not do that. Let's see. All right, guys. Well, let me show you something more interesting then if I'm going to be. Technology. I don't know what's happening. Can you see me now? Well, I'm going to keep talking so that we're not blowing off time. Can you see me at least or hear me? No, I don't know. Okay. Our program is called Girl Awakening. And just to clarify, we work with young women and girls who are 10 to 16. And then as you were informed, then there's a mentor program as well. We created a map that mapped out the small neighborhood in Goma that's sort of the most rough. And there's not even a place where these girls can go where they're not at risk of physical violence and abuse. And so one of the highest priorities that we've had was to, and I'm going to show you something, was to find literally there's less than a third of the girls go to primary school, and less than 15% have any schooling whatsoever because they're primarily working at home with taking care of kids and elders or on the streets, most usually doing sex trafficking, sex work. We've recently, this is a map that we did that shows danger zones in an effort to help the girls be able to navigate their own town and find a safe haven. This year was the first year we were able to secure an area, and I'll show you. So just a quick view of like, that's Joy. These are only girls, and they are for the first time in probably their lives in a place where after school, if they're in school and if they're not in school, they're permitted into these premises to just be in a protective zone, to play, to make friends, to get help with schoolwork, or to speak with counselors about their situations. This is a huge accomplishment. I mean, we literally were in corners of alleyways, and sometimes we could secure offices for part-time. So I just wanted to start with that, like as a super happy note for us. We work with girls. We select the groups of young girls. We work with 20 at a time, and then their cohorts, and then we progress up to, so it ends up being about 350 girls in this particular program over 6 weeks. These are images of self-expression. So sometimes one of the reasons we use expressive arts is that, particularly with trauma, speaking about trauma, particularly when it's normalized or when it's so devastating that you don't dare speak about it, it helps to express through visuals. These mandalas, as you can see, are actually what the prompt was. What is the part of you that you want to save and protect? What's the part of you that, in spite of the difficulties in your life, that you hold and treasure? And then from these kinds of projects, we expand to drawing and we teach skills. And then, excuse me, in the process, we end up talking about and mapping out their individual stories and narratives, both the very painful experiences. And then from that, always we're focusing on their resources, on their resiliency, on their goals and hopes and dreams, so that by the progression of sharing the difficulties, we move into what they envision for themselves. And through that, we start to focus on, excuse me, on the theme that they share together. And then they start creating drawings that eventually turn into these sorts of murals. This is one, I think this is about justice for women in particular. And then also the idea that women might actually someday help to oversee justice. Currently, there is no law in Goma, in the DRC, that a young person or any woman can say, I was raped, and their perpetrator would be imprisoned or even reprimanded, which is hard for us to imagine. Here's the female construction worker. I don't want to just keep going through statistics, because those are things that you can all read, but I wanted to give you a sense of the flavor of what we're doing. Another part of the initiation of this program was that when we went into work with young people in trauma recovery, you're walking through devastated neighborhoods, bombed out homes, and it was very depressing. And part of what the women and young girls would say is, it's hard to be hopeful when everything you see around you, first of all, you're told you're useless. Boys are far superior to girls. You can't go to school. You're only good for a limited number of things. And 90% of their day is spent finding water and hauling water to the house. 90%. It doesn't leave a lot of time left over. So part of how our program came to be was from the young women themselves saying that wouldn't it be, this is what would help them. I'm going to let the images speak for themselves a little bit. The materials are the money that we receive through partnerships and individual donations, is largely for our ability to get there and be there, and supplies. That's the majority of what we have. As you can see, we're working with pretty minimal. It's not a high-tech endeavor. You're also getting a glimpse of what the housing and building construction is like. And I wish I could get it so you could see me again, but I don't know that I can. Let's see. There we go. I wanted to share our impact. We're working, as I said, our extension is, if you think of the cohorts that we're working with, about 20 girls at a time, the mentors that started out as cohorts and moved into mentorship, and it starts to grow exponentially. Through the program, we work with leadership, which is males in particular. And when you imagine that young girls who barely speak up in their own homes are brought into community environments where they are asked to share their ideas and their hopes and their dreams, and to participate in leadership meetings, that is the very beginning of shifting of social norms. The idea that they would even be permitted into some of these meetings is a brand new idea. And what we've seen over the last few years is that the leadership in the community is no longer sort of allowing this to happen, but are actually genuinely engaged in and wanting us to be there. They're seeing the impact, not just on each individual girl, but their families, their siblings, and the community at large. This is a huge, this is the largest goal we have, is to work with the girls. They develop a peer relationship so they have a sense of safety. But overall, we want the infrastructure of the community to start to support their goals and to take them into consideration. This year, we're going to have a broad reach of about 300,000 people, we hope, just through the participation in our projects. We have put, I don't know if you're aware of this, we have an education fund. 2 years ago, we were able to get about 15 young women into school. The majority of them were taken out due to COVID when their family members, and this is generally true, if anything happens in the family, if there's any sort of loss of income, girls are pulled out of school, if they're even in school, to accommodate the males in the family and to help the household. With our education fund this year, we were able to keep all the girls in school year round, which is again another landmark. We've also located a local partner that is going to help us keep the program year round. So historically, we would go and we'd do 6 weeks at a time, stay in contact with everybody as best we could, and then several months later, go back to another 6 weeks. But our goal is to have it be a sustainable program by having the mentor programs, the local partnerships, and then the girls themselves created their own group. This was a miracle. So they took the skills they learned, they on their own. This was not even with our bidding, but they wanted themselves to maintain sort of like the girls club for themselves. And they invited new young women into this program and started to share what they had learned. So we feel like we're having some impact. And of course, we have evidence-based research, which is what we base our programming on. And you can go to our website for all the numbers of the impact that we're having, which is we have to do, of course. We know immediately on a qualitative level the impact we're having, but there's also statistics for that. And I would like to stop talking and see and answer questions, because I think that might be more helpful. I hope. Any questions or thoughts?
So
I can't hear you. You're muted.
okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi.
So I'm always curious and interested in the process. Like they start out this, then this happens. Eventually they start changing the community. So can you kind of give us sort of a map of that process? Because what's really interesting about Together Women Rise is there's some like similarities in the process of what happens when we empower girls and women. So I want to hear yours, because I am so delighted that you are doing the arts, because a lot of programs around sports, I
Yeah.
think sometimes artists are overlooked.
Thank you for the question.
Wait.
Can you hear? All right, the process. It begins with, oh, can I talk? Can you hear me? Okay, so the process is selection first, right? So people want to know, how do you initially get your young women into the program? We started out the very beginning of the program, literally door to door. The same way we mapped the town, we met the families, we met the girls, we found out who was interested in participating. Obviously, they didn't come out and say, listen, 50% of them have had physical and sexual violence in their life by the time they're 40 years old. The majority of them have it by the time they're 21. So when we're going door to door, they're not saying, hey, help me, I was raped, or see this little kid, that's my son, and it was my uncle's. So it's a very complex interview process to gain the trust of the young girls. Some of them volunteer, some of them are were pointed towards through other local organizations. Once we're there on the ground, we meet, we talk. Usually we do games, right? So you were saying sports, and that's because often through the body, through the nonverbals, dancing, like I showed that first video, you get comfortable, and we do identity work. I don't know, I hope this is what you're asking for. We start to do art projects, individual art projects with them. We have them branch off into small groups where they do, as they get more comfortable, start to talk about their personal lives, their personal stories. We do didactic training around reproductive health, around opportunities that are available to them that they're not aware of in their local environment, and also the idea that the world goes beyond their town. So exposing them to the world of possibility is huge. There's a young woman who her greatest achievement wasn't her greatest, but at the moment it was her greatest achievement. She climbed a ladder because to do these murals, they're doing construction. They're actually drawing, they're picking the themes, they're drawing the themes, then they have to map them up on the buildings. They have to construct they do the construction often of the scaffolding. And then this young woman was terrified to climb a ladder just to go up. And then secondly, she was terrified to be seen in public doing what is typically a masculine role. And so for her to get to the top of the ladder, she said, if she could do that, she could do anything. It seems to us in this universe a small accomplishment, but to her, it was that aha moment of possibility. I can just keep talking, but I think I should see if there's another question. Remember, you're muted.
Hi, thank you so much for coming to speak to us today. You see that my head's. My question is really a personal one. I'm so impressed with the work that you're doing, and I can just imagine in the Congo, the conditions seem really rough with childhood rape and poverty. And how do you personally keep going? Do you have another job? Is this your full-time job? And how, with all the frustrations, how do you do it?
Well, I am not boots on the ground in Goma. Christina is there. She's going to be there for 3 months. She and I speak just about every day. It's much harder for her there. Once she's there, and right now, actually, things are escalating. And I don't know, even NPR had a story about Congo, I think about 5 days ago, something like that. And I was typing to her frantically, are you okay? Where are you going? What are you doing? And I spoke to her on the phone. We do, through WhatsApp. She said, what are you talking about? I'm fine. Like, what are you talking? They had no clue. So they keep very close. Some of it is that it's normalized. Violence is normalized. Hearing artillery and sounds around. She sometimes has to sequester at the UN in sort of an enclosed area, but even now that's problematic. For me, I have worked directly clinically for a long time with this population, just not in Congo. And I periodically, I've taken a decade off here and there, shifting populations because I have to maintain my own endurance level as well, right? I guess I'm speaking for Christina in a little ways, but projecting that you can do what you can do in front of you each day. And if you have to pull the lens back to design the program, to the administrative infrastructure side of it, but when you're there working with the young women, it's personal, it's intimate, and you're dealing with them. It's really emotional. It's just it sounds very corny, but it's you're connecting to the humanity in that individual, and they're so joyful. I mean, I shouldn't say they, but we all have the capacity, particularly when we're given opportunity, to see our own agency and our own possibility. They latch onto it. And that's what I hope that addresses that. It's like that little spark that you see, if you can sometimes it takes the entire 6 weeks of the program to just light that up for somebody. And actually they light it up for themselves, but hopefully we're helping them. So that's what keeps us going. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We're going to go on to any more questions.
Thank you.
First of all, Laura, I just want to thank you. And I thought that answer to Carol's question was just beautiful. That spark of seeing the hope that people want to latch onto that.
Yeah.
My question was going to be, or is, can you make the link between civil war and trauma and gender trauma? This country has been convulsed by civil war ad infinitum. I'm sure that is not disconnected from what you see on the ground. And if you could talk to us about that connection.
I'm hesitant to conjoin those two. So I agree with you. I think that the Civil War exacerbates a pre-existing social norm, which has to do with the perception that, well, the acquired perception that boys and men are better, more powerful, more able, that women are only for certain, for domestic use. I think that poverty, whether in war or not, creates a level of frustration and despair, low self-esteem in men and in women, unfortunately. So we're looking at cycles. We're enculturated, right? So if you grow up as a young boy and you witness rape and abuse and poor behavior, the same as you would in America, right? It doesn't matter. It could be in a house on the Upper West Side of New York. It doesn't matter where it is. You witness these things and you replicate. So we have been asked before, why do we not work with boys as well? And we have had programs in Liberia where we work with young men, but we've learned that our goal is to empower women so that they can advocate for themselves, and to empower them to be part of their communities in a way where they can enact change. Directly with the Civil War, it's 30 years. So this, beyond just the young women and the issues of gender-based violence, any progress that's made culturally and socially and economically is periodically devastated. There was a volcano eruption last year. It wiped out a neighborhood. So if people had just opened up a business or maybe moved into a new house, it's wiped out, and they already didn't have a lot. So, well, one other aspect I'll connect to the Civil War is, unfortunately, as we know here, is the tendency to create bias by group. And so if you are faction A against faction B, and you already have a culture of abuse to women, and you come in and you start to dominate, A starts to dominate B, it does again, further exacerbate the abuse of those women. So hopefully, if the women feel more able and have more skills, they can stand up for themselves or find a way out, or find ways of getting help. Any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know your work is made so much harder by the 30 years and ongoing civil war there, which one of the main methods of war is rape of women.
Absolutely.
And comes from the belief that women are less than men.
Yeah,
and
that
they're to be used.
yeah, and as those men are away from whoever else they were raping in their own hometowns, they feel empowered to do that. I think it's important to not villainize the men either, though. I mean, it's part of what we're trying to do is to educate, and that's a very long process.
We want to thank you so much for joining us this evening, for taking time out of your very, very busy schedule. You've really just been a wonderful presence with us this evening. Thank you so much for doing the work that you're doing, for being so talented at it, for bringing all the expertise you bring to it.
You're
May
very
you
thoughtful. Thank you
continue
so
to do
much.
this
Thank you.
wonderful, wonderful work for women who really, really need it.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you all for being part of RISE. I think RISE is phenomenal. So thank you for doing what you're doing. Take care. If you have any other questions, feel free to email. That's fine. And I'll do my best. Thank you.